Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. This time we continue with Who Month. And it's Delta and the Bannermen, starring the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. A Sylvester McCoy review, 1 every 20 reviews, that's about right. Here is the plot synopsis from the usual, the television companion. A shimmering queen called Delta, the last surviving member of her race, is being pursued by the evil Gavrok and his Bannermen, intent on a mission of genocide. Delta finds herself on board a space bus of tourists en route to Earth, when it's knocked off course by an American satellite and ends up at a Welsh holiday camp in 1959. The Doctor and Mel, having won a holiday with the tourists, help Delta to evade the rampaging Bannermen long enough to allow her child to hatch from its egg and grow to maturity. She, her daughter, and a young man named Billy, who sacrifices his humanity to be with her, then escape to start a new life and ensure the continuation of the Shimmering race. So here we are, 3-parter from the 24th season of Doctor Who, Sylvester McCoy's first, and I'll have to be honest here, this is the story I've seen the least of the McCoy era out of all 12. Now there is a consensus I've mentioned on the channel before in these reviews that there's 6 good McCoy stories and the 6 not so good McCoy stories. I'll reveal which it falls into in a minute, but let's just go over the story very quickly, go over some of the good bits and pieces, and before I do that, let's go into some of the cast and how they've gone on with this, and what I think of the performances. So we have the starting off, of course, with the Doctor, Sylvester McCoy. He seems to be finding it relaxed in his role. It's interesting how it's portrayed here, because he's still a bit fun-loving, he's not as a clownish. He comes across as kind of an affable uncle, but he comes across a bit more as a bit unsure socially about what to do and where to go at times, which is interesting. There are elements in this story of the 7th Doctor's darker side starting to come through. The injustice he tries to defend here with Gavrok going about trying to murder Delta, and the brutality that the Bannermen are showing when they arrive in South Wales is interesting. The speech, Life, what do you know about life, Gavrok? That is interesting near the end of the 2nd episode. That works quite well. You get the sense, though, he's maybe not quite judged how he can put himself across with that. But it's a fun enough adventure. It's quite fun. A bit of a gallivant about across some of the South Welsh countryside, which is interesting. It's set... it's filmed in Barry. Ironically, and Barry Island's used again in the Empty Child Doctor Dances, as the abandoned railway station set is in Barry. But this is one of the earlier times that Barry's used in Doctor Who. Well, it's around the area. It's a holiday camp just outside Barry. Ultimately, it's a fun role. I do still enjoy watching the 7th Doctor. This one, you kind of think he's a bit uncertain on his feet, and it's not quite as got the kind of strengths to it that you would see in Paradise Towers or in Dragonfire. For me, it doesn't quite feel like the 7th Doctor 100%. It's kind of like a kind of in between what we see with the darker side and the more fun Doctor we see at the beginning, the more comical, clownish Doctor that we see in the previous 2 stories. It's the first of the transitions of the Doctor to an extent, and it does come across a bit as that. It's McCoy trying to flex his muscles a little bit in regards to how he wants the role to work, and you can see that in the performance. It's not bad by any means. It's just interesting how this is the story where there's a little bit of a turn in the character a little bit. You then got Mel, played by Bonnie Langford. Adequate enough companion role. She's there to be the comfort when she's roomed up with Delta when they get to the holiday camp. The whole conversation there. The problem with this 3-parter is you don't get much to develop the character on, and Mel does her stereotypical scream at the end of the 1st episode when the hatchling comes out, and it's kind of like, oh, for God's sake, here we go. That was not necessary. She didn't need to scream with that. It's just more morbid fascination than screaming. Surely doesn't need to scream for that. It's a bit odd. It's a bit weird. But overall, it's the male character we know from Doctor Who. She's okay, but I don't know. It's kind of like the standard companions lost most of their charm by this point, and certainly it seems to be showing the case here with Mel. She's basically the token companion. There's not really much to her, and it shows quite quickly that that's the case, which is a shame. It's a shame. We then got some of the guest cast. I'll leave one of them till later on. I'll get some of the ones out of the way which I don't quite understand the whole point of them. They're seen as comic relief, and it's kind of like the appearance of Dolores Gray in Silver Nemesis. You've got Weissmuller played by Stubby Kaye and Hawk played by Morgan Deere. These two characters are basically supposed to be agents for NASA and for the US government. I love the fact they use a police box to call through to the US, a proper police box to call through to the US embassy and the US government to speak to the president at the beginning of the first episode. But they're to find the satellite that ultimately crashes into the space bus that Murray and the guys crash into when they're travelling back to Earth. They don't do much. There is a kind of glorious plot point to understand why, what the satellite's for, but they don't do anything. They're held hostage by the Bannermen at one point. They kind of seem a bit lost when they get to the beekeeper's house. It just seems a bit of a mess, I think is probably the best way of putting it. It is literally a bit of a mess. You've got the appearance of the Tollmaster, played by Ken Dodd, and do you know what? They're playing on Ken Dodd's kind of happy-go-lucky comedy kind of chops, but it works okay. I quite like the character. His death is a bit over the top when Gavroche kills him against the wall at the toll booth, but overall it's not a bad little role. It's quite fun to see, but again, there's not much to it. This episode is crammed full of celebrities and celebrity names and well-known names of the time, and they don't do much. And I think this is the one thing that I think they may be going a bit OTT with this one. And this seems to be the fullest, the chock full of celebrity names or light entertainment names story. Because Paradise Towers has a few, but the big one's really Delta. And this is the episode, I think, this season that shows that. And it's a bit sad because it means they do all. Literally all. You've got Delta, played by Belinda Main. She's okay. There is some character to Delta about the fact that she's running away from the Bannermen because they're about to create genocide or cause genocide. I thought that was really a interesting plot point, and she comes across initially a bit aloof, but starts to warm up when Mel shows that she wants to help, and Billy's there as well, and the softer maternal side comes out of Delta when the baby is born. Belinda Main plays it quite well, and it's a nice little character, and they would, she works in that respect. You've then got Burton, played by Richard Davis, the affable camp manager. You do get a feeling maybe he's trying to play on the kind of Heidi-High vibes a little bit with the way the character is portrayed in this, but it works well enough. And it's a fun little character, and he gets into a little bit of jeopardy at one point. He doesn't need the sword. He doesn't need to flow about the sword and show his mettle when the Doctor persuades him to evacuate all his staff. That's a bit silly, but the story is a bit light in that respect anyway. You've then got Murray, played by Johnny Dennis, who is the bus driver. He's quite affable. He's kind of like Cockney, come across as a Cockney chap. It works okay. It's a fun nice little role, and you can tell that he's got a bit of a rapport with Mel, because Mel goes on the tour bus with the Doctor follows in the TARDIS. So it's interesting seeing that rapport, and you feel sad for him when he dies at the end of the second episode. Spoilers. So you feel sad for him. It's played okay by Johnny Dennis. You've then got the enigmatic character of Goronwy, played by Hugh Lloyd, who, has an affinity with his bees. The bees seem to talk to him about things, and he expects the Americans to turn up. He expects the Doctor to come through. He loves his honey and his beekeeping, and the Doctor seems to have an affinity for him. They're kind of referencing potentially he might be a Time Lord in hiding, which is interesting if it's true, but yeah, it's an interesting role. It's an interesting way of dealing with it. He's an intriguing character, but Hugh Lloyd plays it solidly enough. You've then got Billy, played by David Kinder. David Kinder plays Billy quite well. It's kind of like an affable mechanic who works, and he's basically the technical fixer-upper in the camp, because he's helping fixing the sound system at one point, and he helps the Doctor with a bigger sound system that's used for helping disable the Bannerman in the third episode. This kind of love story he has with Delta, he's obviously fancies her and wants to be with her, but it's a bit of a quick turnaround overall to get to that stage where he loses his humanity to help with Delta. It's interesting. You've then got Ray, played by Sarah Griffiths. Now, Ray was potentially one of two companions, two candidate characters to become the companion for Doctor Who, because Bonnie Langford's contract was up at the end of the season, and the decision was either to have a new companion come off the back of Delta and the Bannermen, or a new companion come off the back of Dragonfire. The other companion of potential, of course, is Ace, and we all know how that happened. But out of the two, I think they made the better decision with Ace, because Ray is interesting. She's kind of a tomboy who can fiddle the bikes and things like that. But there's not much to the character of Ray in this story, so there wasn't much to go on. So I think they have made ultimately the best decision by having Ray as a one-off character. Yeah, it's interesting having that. It's a nice little role. It's quite fun, but it's kind of in the kind of semi-mould of Mel. And I don't know if we need a continuation of Mel here. We need somebody a bit stronger for the Seventh Doctor to bounce off of. So I think actually I have made the best decision. Don't get me wrong, Sarah Griffiths does well with what she's got, but she hasn't got much to go with. I have left the best guest cast appearance to Don Henderson, who plays Gavrock. He gets the evil bit straight away. He's got no issue with the evilness of the role. He wants to destroy all the Shimmerans, and the character is very clearly out for violence and out for revenge. I'm not quite sure about the bit where he's eating the meat at the end of the second episode, what that's all about, whether that's actually a person he's eating or just meat in general. I don't know why that was there to make him more evil. He could have done it on his own without chomping on something, I suppose. But overall, I do like the way Don Henderson plays a character. It comes across the big enough big bad for the story, and it's justifiable. It's the big bad that keeps it going, really. Some elements I do like of this story. Overall, it's an entertaining 3 episodes. It kind of dies a little bit in the third episode. There's a lot. There seems to be a little bit of padding, literally, of them running around the countryside, going between different places on bikes. It's okay, but it's, you know, it looks like the story was padded even for 3 episodes, which is not necessarily a good thing, but it seems to be the case here. I like the idea of the space bus already being in the style of the 1950s bus, so it doesn't look out of place when they do arrive in Wales. Obviously, the original plan was to go to Disneyland. That's what the Doctor and Mel had won. At the 10th billion customer at the toll booth, at the toll port, G715. Where the tollmaster is, and they've got tickets for Disneyland in the 1950s. So all the styles are there, and the fact, and this is the silly bit of the story where you've got all the aliens turning into human eyes, and you can see the humanizer device at the beginning in the toll port where you see Murray change. And it just looks like a bog standard Doctor Who monster. So you've got the greenness of the Shimmeran here, which is fun enough. It's interesting enough. It works. The fight sequence with all the Shimmeran people that get killed, and the whole idea of them being originally green, most of them being green, and only the queens become, more humanoid in their look. And that's an interesting comparison there with the raw jelly factor of the honey, and obviously the kind of version of raw jelly that's been fed to the Shimmeran child by Delta throughout the story. And it's some of that jelly that Billy takes on to change his form as well. It's interesting, that kind of idea that they all have one sort of look, and then if they have a certain type of protein, they change, and that kind of comparison with the bees. And that's where the bees comes in. Is a kind of like a metaphor for how the Shimmeran works. Are they really needed? Not really. That whole idea with Gavrock is a little bit strange. The holiday camp bit, quite fun. Bit of Hi-de-Hi element to it. I'm sure some of the jackets that some of the staff are using come from Hi-de-Hi, probably. BBC costume department utilising resources that they are already. This is apart from the TARDIS scenes, completely on location, because there is one scene with the Doctor in the TARDIS at one point to give a force field for the bus to stop it crashing into Earth when it got hit by the satellite, the experimental satellite. So that's interesting. The idea that Shimmeran have a defence system with high-pitched noises and sounds, which is depicted through the child, is interesting, and how that's used to help disable and help the good guys win at the end against the Bannermen. There's only about 5 or 6 of them. there seemed to be a lot more initially, but there only seem a band of 5 or 6 of them that come up, who actually land and follow Delta to Earth. I suppose if you've got such a power source, why do you need lots of people? It's interesting that they decided to do the invasion in Wales and not actually an alien invasion in the home counties. Obviously, that becomes a bit more of a common thing in Doctor Who in the noughties, but at this time it's quite novel having an alien invasion in a different place in the UK than just being London and the home counties. So that's an interesting element of it. The writing by Malcolm Cole is very light. Probably to keep in the nature of what they wanted for this series. He doesn't write for the series again. I can maybe understand why, because the plotline's a bit sparse. There is literally padding of them riding through the countryside between two locations. It just doesn't seem, it just seems to, it's a bit of action for action's sake. It doesn't have any major idea for the plot really. And those sort of scenes could maybe be removed if it was tightened up. So that is literally your padding, and it's in the 3rd episode as well, so it doesn't really bode well for a 3-part story for Doctor Who. But those are the breaks. That's the nature of the beast sometimes when it comes to creating Doctor Who and working it. It's directed by Chris Clough, so ultimately it is enjoyable and the action sequences are okay, but Chris Clough was also directed Doctor Who before this, and he's also directed obviously Silver Nemesis. So the action part and all the explosions and that is a big part of how Chris Clough wants to try and get the action across with these stories. And it's okay, and it's standard fare, but it's one of these, it's definitely a take your brain out as Doctor Who story, and I don't say that much with the McCoy stuff because most of them I like some of the elements. This one's kind of the weakest because I don't like some of the elements in this as much as I would do in, say, Paradise Towers or Time of the Rani. For me, I think it is the weakest of the 4 stories in season 24, and I had that on my mind before I watched this again, and that's justified with this. The music by Kev McCulloch, it's not the best musical score that Kev McCulloch does, but it's okay, it's alright, it does the job. I love the 50s elements that he has with the music, you know. There's a lot of 50s style music in here, of covers of actual proper stories, proper songs rather, and it does make it a better atmosphere when you're in the holiday camp and the 50s holiday camp experience. It actually works quite well. But when he gets the action sequences, it's very much his musical style. And the first season that he does, this is the last one he scores in season 24, and there is a lot of different things in this one which don't come out in the later ones. And I think his MIDI soundboard is a little bit more established in the next couple of seasons, but this one is a bit more very high 80s synth feeling to it. It doesn't fully detract from it, but it is certainly one to keep an eye on. So overall, this story, I think you've kind of guessed by now, it's one of the 6 McCoy stories that isn't rated as highly out of the 12 that he did. I actually think Delta is the weakest of all the Doctor Who stories of McCoy's era. It's not by much. Silver Nemesis isn't far off it, but it's definitely still a take your brain out, still worth enjoying, and I like McCoy's era anyway. But this one I will give a rating of 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how that story fits in with the rest of the Doctor Who stories I've reviewed in the McCoy era, and also the rest of the television stories I've reviewed so far. Delta and the Bannermen sits at the bottom with 3 TARDISes out of 5, alongside Silver Nemesis and Battlefield. At the top is the Happiness Patrol with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, there are still 2 stories with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5. They are, of course, Sleep No More and Time Lash. And at the top, as well as the Happiness Patrol, there are 5 other stories that have 4.5 TARDISes out of 5 as their rating. They are Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it for this Doctor Who review. Tell me what you think about Delta and the Bannermen. Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please like it and share it with the hashtag teamstructor. And also, if you like the channel as a whole, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, which is when the next one comes out, The Spectre of Lanyon Moor, which completes Who Month, the Big Finish audio monthly adventure. If you want to help support the channel even more than just hitting that subscribe button, you can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/Deanstructor. For as little as £1 or $1 a month, you can help support the channel. There are 3 tiers at the moment. Teamstructor level 1, that is just a name check at the end of the end credits and the end caption on the video. Teamstructor level 2, That's the level where you get advanced screenings of episodes of stories and videos coming out on the channel. At least a week in advance, you'll get a Deanstructor video. And Teamstructor level 3, you get those other perks as well, but you also get a chance to get extra little videos. There's extra videos we've done and released on Patreon only for level 3. Whatever you do, please go to the Patreon, please go and support. As I say, as little as £1 or $1 a month, you can go to patreon.com/Deanstructor. That's it from me. Thanks guys for watching. As always, as I say, on Sunday 4 PM GMT, we finish Who Month with The Spectre of Lanyon Moor. I will see you then. Until next time guys, see you later.